I've been in the insurance industry for 20 years, and I have seen all types of claims that you most likely couldn't imagine, claims that I would have never imagined. But there's one particular claim that happened to one of my clients that I want to tell you a story about. You're not going to believe this one. When I first started in the business, I joined local networking groups. I met business owners from all different types of industries. And in this group, I met a gentleman who was a jeweler. Now, this gentleman was a longtime jeweler, most likely 30 plus years he was in the business. He owned a jewelry store in a strip mall. This particular strip mall had 5 or 6 other stores around his store. As part of his business, he sold jewelry. So he had, jewelry cases, like you could imagine, display cases, sold custom jewelry. So he made his own custom jewelry, really nice product, nice materials. And I surveyed the store before I provided his insurance coverage for him. He had all his jewelry display cases along the side of the store into the back, had his nice designs on the walls, carpeting. And then in the back of the store, he had, I guess you could call it his tool shop. All his equipment to make the custom metals and jewelry. Above the store was a little loft. I guess on certain occasions, he would stay at the loft overnight. According to what I learned after the fact, each store owner had their own lofts upstairs. They didn't want to travel home at night and go back and forth and commute or whatnot. It was about a year and a half into the networking that I was in. He wanted me to take over from a policy that he had for years and years with another agency. Wrote him a business owner's policy, which I've talked about in previous videos. Also a workers' compensation policy. Now, of note, I want to tell you that if you're not aware of jeweler's block coverage is a policy specifically designed to ensure the stock, the ownership of all the valuable jewelry. This gentleman probably had about $300,000 in precious metals and gemstones and all types of stones that he owned. He decided not to buy jewelry's block coverage. He said, I've been in business for 30 plus years. I've never had any losses of that nature. I'm not concerned with jewelry block coverage. I do not want to insure my stock. If you know the jewelry business, people that are in that business, they rely on that. That's their capital. That's their assets. A lot of times people in that business, they retire based on the value of their jewels. So to decline that coverage turned out to be a major mistake. About 6 months after I issued his policies for him, the gentleman showed up to his jewelry store. He was one of these early risers. He showed up about 6 in the morning. The night before, and something that I didn't know, turns out that there was a pawn shop owner down the street that the jewelry store owner had a connection with for many, many years. People would pawn their jewelry. He would bring it into the jewelry store for maybe some repairs or updates. And at times, he would bring old metals. The client would agree to melt the metals, and then they would give it back to the pawn shop owner. They would sell it to the refinery and then split the proceeds. The pawn shop owner, on the night before the incident, came in and dropped off a bag of metals. At the time, the jewelry store owner didn't know what it was. So our jewelry store owner gets to the shop, turns on his kiln to a very high temperature, and then inserts this bag full of metals into the oven, into the kiln, to begin melting it down, gets it up to temperature, leaves the store to go run some errands, maybe grab a coffee. Well, about an hour and a half later, he returns to his store, pulls up in the parking lot. He notices there's a powdery white material all covering the outside of the building. Opens the door to his jewelry shop, goes inside. That powdery white material is coating the entire store, all over his jewelry, all over his displays, all over the walls, the carpet. As he enters into the back, he sees it kind of spewing out of the oven. Turns off his oven. The metal's melted, but it has turned into this white powdery material. Well, the jewelry store owner immediately realized what it was. It was mercury. These were old dental fillings, silver dental fillings that contained mercury. When he melted it down, that metal evaporated and turned into this powdery mercury, which escaped the oven, contaminated the entire store, went outside, contaminated the entire strip mall and all the stores and locations next and above. This gentleman was a very honest man, knew right away what happened, called emergency services in the county that we live in. The emergency services immediately sent out a hazmat crew. They shut down the entire area. Mercury is extremely dangerous. Any type of exposure to it could cause severe illness. In fact, a couple of the neighboring businesses had people at the locations at the time. One of them got sick. Turned out to be a horrible mess. But anyways, the hazmat crew comes out, emergency services come out. The stores are immediately closed. The whole area is shut off. It took days for the cleanup to start and stop. Our jewelry store owner and all the stores around him, they had to have their entire stores ripped out. Carpet gone, walls torn down. The jewelry store owner in this case lost all of his stock because once that contaminant gets on any type of material, it can no longer be used. It has to be destroyed and disposed of properly. Hundreds of thousands in tools, 300,000 roundabout in stock inventory, interior of his store, the artwork, everything he had, just a tremendous mess. The business was shut down for more than a month. So were the other businesses. He had third-party claims come against him for the property damage he caused to others, the landlord, and some bodily injury because of illness. And this is all because of a bag roughly this big. There were insurance claims adjusters and claims handlers that have been in the business for years that had never even encountered something like this. So a rare situation, these are the types of things that can happen. These are the types of things that make it important to have appropriate coverage, because you can never expect something like this to happen. That's what we're here for. We're here to help clients such as you properly protect yourself, protect your business, protect your livelihood, and manage your risk appropriately so that if something like this does happen, you're protected. Thanks again for watching. Hope you stay safe and hope to see you soon.